Hi guys, Kim here for Treasure League Kit Club and Chipboard. What I've got for you today is part 2 of our July Mixed Media Kit tutorial. Part 1 is up on how we made the frames using our July Mixed Media Kit. And this is part 2 where we create this entire canvas using the Mixed Media Kit plus some chipboard from our store and a few pieces from my stash and some stuff from past mixed media kits, because that's the purpose of our mixed media kits, to help you build your medium so you have stuff to use over and over again. So if you want to see how I created this canvas, stay tuned. Okay guys, let's go ahead and get started with this canvas. Our last video, remember, we created these frames from this kit and we already pre-gessoed them with some clear gesso. So I'm going to set those aside. We've got our canvas from the mixed media kit, and if you haven't seen this kit, I will link it up in the cards above. Also, we're going to be using the flowers from the kit, and we're going to be using the paints. And what I did is I pulled a few things from some past kits. So we're going to be using the Distress Texture Paste in Crackle and some white paint to go along with our other paints, and a couple of pieces from a past Cards, Tags, and More kit. We're going to be using a stencil, and we're going to be using these vintage photo booth stickers to put behind our frames as images behind our frames. And then I have a couple of things from my stash. I just have some leftover loose blue flowers and a couple of pieces of leaves and some twine. And the first thing I'm going to do to start off with my canvas is I'm just going to give it a wipe, because these things tend to pick up stuff. And I'm going to take the twine and I'm actually going to start from the back with a glue dot to stick that down. I'm not worried about what it looks like on the back, at least not for right now anyway. So I'm going to take this, and that's how I'm going to adhere my twine to start. And I'm just going to wrap this around the canvas a couple of times. I kind of have an idea as to how I want it to go. That we're done with the twine, and now we're going to move on to doing the rest of the background. And I'm going to be using the crackle paste for the rest of the background. So I'm going to take my stencil, and I'm not worried about the color of the twine because I'm going to put some crackle paste over that as well. But I'm going to take my stencil, and I like this one, that this one is overlays the panel, because then I can get my crackle all in one area on this side where I want it without having to move it. And I'm going to try and get a thick layer of the crackle on, and I kind of want it to go like in the center randomly is where I'm going. But like I said, I was going to cover the twine, so I'm just going to take like this little stipple brush and make sure my twine is adjusted correctly, because it took a little move. And I'm just going to stipple over it. And I don't care if it's clunky or chunky, because it's going to crackle when it dries, and so that's just going to give this a little more added texture. It doesn't have to be perfect. What you can do is deal with your, here's a close-up look of that. You see your texture, and you see the texture that I've got on the twine. And like I said, you've got to let that dry, but what you can do is you can deal with your frames. And for my frames, I want them to have a bit of a vintage-y kind of color. So what I pulled out is, and these are from a past kit as well, are the alloy alcohol inks. And we're going to work with these a little bit on our frame. So we'll be right back. Okay, so we're going to work with these two frames on our canvas. And we're going to take the colors Gilded from the alloy set that we got, and I pulled silver from my stash just because I think it goes a little bit better with the blue, but these two are going to work great together, as you saw. And we're going to take Gilded and make sure you mix these well. You hear the ball shaking to mix it. And I'm going to put some drops on my sponge, but I'm also going to put some drops here, and you've got to work pretty quickly because this does dry fast, but I do have my blending solution, and I'm going to spread that out, and it's already looking so pretty. Make sure you get the sides. And you may want to try and get your inside as well. So here are our frames right now, and I'm going to take it one step further because, as you can see, it is missing something, and for me what it's missing is a little brown, so I'm going to take some walnut stain distress ink, and we're going to just run over that really quickly with the brown. As soon as I get my brown sponge out. This one looks like it was brown at one time. And we're just going to take just a little bit. We don't want this walnut stain is kind of dark. We don't want this too dark. So we're just gonna, our frames are looking like. And I'm pretty happy with the way the frames look. Go ahead and wipe this off. Now the next thing I'm gonna do is pick my images for these frames. And I'm going into this little vintage photo booth. And I'm gonna take these two images for the frames. So now would be a good time to go ahead and adhere those while we're still waiting for the crackle to go ahead and dry. And because these are stickers, they're sticky on the back, what I'm doing is I'm just taking some powder that I have in this little thing for stickers, and I'm just brushing it across the back. You can use cornstarch, baby powder, anything. What it does is it just takes the stickiness off. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere my frames so that those can dry while we go back to our canvas, because our canvas should be close to dry by now. And I'm just going to take a little bit of glue on the outside of my frame. Very close to the edge where the photo is going to be. We're good with those. Okay, now we're going to be moving right back to our canvas. Alright, so our canvas is pretty much dry, and I'm not sure if you can see the crackles, but they're there. You'll probably see them better once we start adding some color to this. So, and that's what we're going to start to do. We're going to start by adding color to this. And we're going to be using the paints that came in the kit. We've got turquoise, we've got peacock, and we've got ocean, and that's from lightest to darkest, and that's how you're going to use them on your project. You start with your lightest color and you work up to your darkest color. Now if you don't want to, I don't want to just squeeze them onto my canvas I'm going to use a little palette that I have, and I'm going to squeeze a little out in a palette, and I want my paints a little runny, so I'm going to be adding some water to them to make them the way that I want. But these paints are really nice and thick, and that's why I like using them. But for this project, I want them to be a little runnier, so I'm just going to squeeze some into my little palette. And then I'm going to take my water mister and give it a couple of mists. And then I'm going to take my paintbrush, once I find the right size that I want, kind of how I want it. So that's kind of where I'm at with that color. And now I'm going to my next darkest color, which is Peacock. And I'm going to do the same thing again. Add some to my palette. Add some water. This is where we're at so far. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this. Okay, now it's dry, and I'm really loving how it's looking. I'm not going to use as much as our darkest color, which is going to be Ocean, because I really like the way that this has turned out so far. So I'm only going to take a little bit of that Ocean. And again, I am going to spritz it with some water. Okay, now you can see how the colors have run down into the cracks of the crackle. And this is our design, but what I really like about the fact that we're working with canvas that's pre-gessoed is if you've got some color in areas like where you really don't want it, you can just go ahead and take like a wipe and kind of wipe that off a little bit. So that's all I'm doing here. Is I really like these little clean areas here. And just wanted to give it a little wipe. No big deal. That's just my personal preference. You don't have to do this. It's just my personal preference. Alright, and so I like how our canvas is looking here. It's just I want to give it just a little bit of a little vintage color, like to tie in our frames with it, because this is such a bright color. So I'm going to go back to our walnut stain, and I'm just going to take my ink tool here, and I'm just going to I got pieces of my sponge on here. It's got caught in the crackle, so I'm just dusting that off. There we go. Now I think it's got a little bit more of a little vintagey feel to it. And now we're going to go back to our frames, which are right here. And it's time for me to go ahead and trim. So I'm just taking off the corners here, this little bit that is behind the frame. And that's going to be our first frame, which is going to sit like right here. And here's our other frame. Like I said, I'm just trimming off these corners here. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. We've got our frame stuck down, and moving on to the fun part, the embellishments of this. We've got all our mixed media done. Now it's just time to go ahead and embellish this, so we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back, and you see I started embellishing already. I added a few things that I didn't have out initially. First thing was this chipboard border strip. This is a white border. It's from our line of chipboard, and the link to the website is below. You can find this. You go under shop, under chipboard, and look under limited edition chipboard, because our white pieces, our colored pieces, actually we have some in white and some in black, and they're limited edition, so that's where you can find that. I also pulled out some cheesecloth just to give it a little bit more texture, and I think cheesecloth gives vintage projects a little bit more texture. So now we're going to go ahead in with the flowers and finish up with this. I added a piece of foam tape to this first flower that we're going to put here. Again, I'm trying to get as much dimension and texture to this as possible. So I'm just going to add that there. And I need a small piece. And this is a little bit thinner foam tape that I have here. I'm going to add a small piece to the other flower that I'm going to add on the other side. About a sentiment for these, trying to find the right thing to put on these. I've got these from my stash, and just trying to find a sentiment that would go the best with these. And I'll take a look and see, and we come back, I'll probably have one on there. Alright, so we found a title. We added a little heart and soul to the project, and that's going to be our title. And this is our completed project using the July Mixed Media Kit from Très Joli's. Thank you for stopping by and checking out our video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below and the like button, and then hit that notification bell so you're notified when all of our videos go up, because YouTube won't let you know if you're subscribed unless you hit that notification bell. But again, this has been Kim for TrésJolieKits.com. You can find us at our website at www.TrésJolieKits.com. And come check us out. Make sure you stop by the shop, you check out our past kits, and you check out our line of laser cut chipboard. So once again, thanks for stopping by. Bye.